The Unseen War. The Galactic Empire had conquered countless worlds, bending civilizations to its will. But it had never faced an enemy like her. Not yet. On a remote colony world, beneath the crimson skies of Varkaan 5, Alara lived in quiet solitude. A warrior once feared across the stars, she had abandoned war, choosing instead to nurture life. But fate was cruel. The Empire, relentless in its hunger for control, razed her village to the ground. And in doing so, they took the life of the one she held most dear, her unborn child. Alara knelt in the smoldering ruins, ash falling like snow around her. Her fingers trembled as they touched the remains of her home, her heart hollowed by grief. She had known war, had carved her name into history with blood and steel. But nothing could compare to the rage now burning inside her. The Empire had made a mistake. A fatal one. That day, a mother died. And something else was born. The legend of Baba Yaga began. Whispers of vengeance. Word of the massacre spread through the shadow networks of the galaxy. Mercenaries, smugglers, and rebels spoke in hushed voices of a ghost from the past. Alara, the butcher of Kylos, the woman who had once shattered an imperial armada single-handedly, had returned. She resurfaced in the lawless sectors, hunting down imperial officers responsible for the slaughter. Each death was a message. Each corpse left behind was a warning. The Empire dismissed her at first. A lone woman, even one with a reputation, was no threat to their might. They were wrong. The Ghost Fleet. Alara was not alone. Old allies, bound by blood and vengeance, answered her call. Pirate lords, rogue admirals, and exiled warriors gathered under her banner. They whispered her name with reverence, not as Alara, but as Baba Yaga, the bringer of nightmares. With them, she forged the Ghost Fleet, a force born from the Empire's discarded and betrayed. Their warships, stolen from imperial docks, struck from the void like phantoms, tearing apart supply lines and crippling the Empire's war machine. Fear spread like wildfire. The Empire had awakened something they could not contain. The Emperor's wrath. The Emperor himself could not ignore the rising storm. He dispatched his greatest general, Lord Valtrin, to eliminate this threat. Ruthless and efficient, Valtrin had crushed entire rebellions before they could take root. But he did not face rebels. He faced a mother's wrath. The first strike. Valtrin's fleet arrived at the edge of the Ghost Nebula, where Baba Yaga's forces were rumored to operate. He expected a swift victory. He found a nightmare instead. Alara knew the Empire's tactics, she had helped design them. She led Valtrin's forces into a trap, using decoy ships to lure them into an asteroid field laced with hidden mines. The Imperial fleet was torn apart before they could react. Valtrin barely escaped, his forces in disarray. The Ghost Fleet had made its first true statement. This was war. The siege of Kylos. Enraged by his defeat, Valtrin sought vengeance in the cruelest way. He targeted Kylos, the world where Alara had first made her mark. If he could not defeat her in battle, he would destroy everything she once stood for. Alara saw the attack coming. She moved faster. The Ghost Fleet descended upon the Imperial forces with ruthless precision. Fighters darted between capital ships, delivering devastating strikes. Boarding teams, led by Alara herself, cut through Imperial ranks like wildfire. By the time the battle ended, the Empire had lost another fleet. Kylos remained free. The Emperor's offer. Defeat after defeat forced the Emperor's hand. He sent an envoy, offering Alara a truce. A chance to walk away. She laughed in his face. There would be no peace. Not While the empire stood, the emperor made one final mistake. He declared total war. The storm breaks. The empire threw everything at Baba Yaga, entire armadas, legions of shock troops, assassins sent to kill her in the dead of night. None succeeded. Her legend only grew. Worlds that had suffered under the empire began to rise. Inspired by her defiance, they rebelled. The war was no longer just hers. It was a revolution. And revolutions had a way of toppling even the mightiest empires. The final battle. Alara led her forces to the imperial core. The heart of the beast. The battle that followed would be spoken of for generations. The Ghost Fleet, outnumbered but unbroken, tore through the emperor's defenses. Fighters weaved through burning wreckage, capital ships exchanged fire in a symphony of destruction. And at the heart of it all, Alara. Baba Yaga. The fall of an empire. Alara stormed the imperial palace, cutting through the last of the emperor's guards. She found him in his throne room, trembling. "You should have let me be a mother," she whispered before the final strike. And with that, the empire fell. The aftermath. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. The war had ended, but its scars remained. Alara did not seek power. She vanished into the stars, her purpose fulfilled. But her legend remained. The legacy of Baba Yaga. In the years that followed, her name became more than a story. It was a symbol, a warning to tyrants, a beacon to the oppressed. Baba Yaga was no longer just one woman. She was an idea. And ideas never died. The stars whisper her name. Some say she still roams the galaxy, a ghost among the stars. Watching, waiting, for the next empire foolish enough to make the same mistake. The legend of Baba Yaga would never fade. It had only begun. The empire's mistake. The empire, in its relentless pursuit of control, thought nothing of the pregnant woman they captured on a distant moon. She was just another casualty in their campaign to subjugate humanity. But they had no idea who she truly was. Her name was Ivana, but she was more than just a woman. She was the embodiment of vengeance. Unbeknownst to the empire, Ivana carried a legacy, one born of ancient power and a mother's unyielding love. Her bloodline had been cursed, marked by those who came before her. She was no ordinary woman. She was Baba Yaga, the feared witch, the bringer of destruction. And now, as the empire locked her in a prison cell, they unknowingly sparked the very doom they had sought to avoid. The prophecy. For generations, the tale of Baba Yaga had been whispered in the shadows. The stories spoke of a powerful figure, a mother who had the ability to bring down entire empires with a single act of fury. The prophecy had been clear: when a mother was wronged, the empire would fall. Ivana's unborn child, however, was the key. It was said that when Baba Yaga's bloodline was threatened, the child would awaken an ancient force, one so terrifying it could tear the galaxy apart. The Empire's decision to imprison Ivana was a grave mistake. They thought her vulnerable, but the prophecy had been set in motion the moment they touched her. The prison. In the Empire's darkest dungeons, Ivana sat in silence, her mind as sharp as ever. The cold stone walls could not break her spirit. She knew that her time was coming. They had made their move, but she would make hers soon enough. She had endured the torture, the threats, and the degradation. But the one thing they could not take from her was the promise of revenge. She could feel her child stirring within her, an energy unlike anything she had ever felt before. It was as if the universe itself was aligning, the very stars conspiring to give birth to something that would shake the foundations of the Empire. The awakening. One night, As the moons of the Empire's conquered planet cast an eerie glow across the prison, Ivana's child began to awaken. It was not a typical birth, there was no pain, no struggle. Instead, the power surged through her veins, and she felt an overwhelming force that connected her to something ancient. Her mind cleared, and she understood everything. She was Baba Yaga, reborn. Her child would be the catalyst. The Empire would know terror like never before. It was time to break free. Breaking the chains. Ivana's escape was swift, brutal, and inevitable. The guards outside her cell had no chance. Her powers, fueled by rage and the bond with her child, were far beyond anything they had ever encountered. One by one, the soldiers fell, unable to comprehend the sheer force of her fury. She didn't stop. The halls of the prison echoed with the sounds of chaos, and the Empire's carefully constructed fortress crumbled in the wake of her vengeance. Ivana was a force of nature, and nothing could stand in her way now. The call to arms. Once free, Ivana made her way to the heart of the Empire's capital. She didn't need an army, her fury was enough. But there were those who had heard the stories, those who feared Baba Yaga's return. Rebel forces, once scattered and disorganized, rallied to her side, ready to fight for freedom. The Empire, caught off guard, struggled to respond. They had underestimated the power of a mother's rage. Ivana's wrath spread like wildfire, igniting a rebellion that would topple the Empire's reign. The battle begins. As the Empire's capital erupted into chaos, Ivana led the charge. Her eyes burned with the promise of revenge, her every movement an expression of her will. The Empire's soldiers, once confident and unyielding, were now terrified. They had heard the legends, but they never believed them. Now, they were living through the nightmare. Ivana's forces swept through the city, taking control of strategic points, crushing the Empire's defenses, and leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. This was no longer just a rebellion, it was the beginning of the end for the Empire. The Emperor's desperation. The Emperor, once a figure of absolute power, realized too late the extent of his mistake. His empire was crumbling before his eyes, and Ivana's name was on every lip, a curse and a symbol of doom. He had heard the stories of Baba Yaga, but never thought they could be true. Desperate, he called upon his most loyal generals and dark forces, trying to contain the uprising. But it was too late. The fury of a mother had awakened, and there was no stopping it now. The final confrontation. Ivana stood before the Emperor's throne, her eyes locked onto him. The air was thick with tension as the two adversaries faced each other. The Emperor, once a god in the eyes of his people, was now a trembling figure in the presence of Baba Yaga. The battle that followed was swift, brutal, and decisive. The Emperor's guards fell, one by one, until only he remained. Ivana's power surged as she approached him, her child growing stronger within her. The Empire's reign was over. The rise of Baba Yaga. With the Emperor's death, the Empire's grip on the galaxy loosened. Ivana had done what no one thought possible, she had brought the Empire to its knees. Her vengeance was complete, but it was not just a personal triumph. The fall of the Empire marked the rise of a new era. Ivana, once a prisoner, was now the ruler of a galaxy that would never forget the power of a mother's fury. Her name, Baba Yaga, became a legend, one that would be whispered in fear for generations to come.